Well, it's Tuesday. That means another patch for the game with significant changes not just to the open world and some hidden sneaky things, maybe hinting at the next Living World episode, but also April is edging ever closer, and of course that means the Super Adventure Box is returning. Now, I know what you're thinking. WP, there's never really massive updates to the Super Adventure Box if they really do anything that good. Last year was a pretty good one. We got like the new race in the hub, and again, there's always reward updates. Well, this year does seem to be bigger than most, and that's because there's new upgradable tools, lots of new adventures, and in fact, some news last week sheds light at something new as well, and that's this kind of crazy trailer. So, what you just watched here was revealed by the devs a few days ago while I was rounding out my Let's Play. And so, they say this, Super Adventure Festival returns next week. They say the bounciest party interior is almost here. Get ready for the return of the Super Adventure Festival from March 28th. So that's actually in 2 days from when I'm making this video, and this patch just went live. The patch contains a lot of regular Guild Wars stuff we'll get to in a second, and genuinely is pretty cool. But also the Super Adventure Box bundled with it, despite the fact it's not opening for a couple of days. But it's from March 28th through till April 18th. And then you'll get access to the box. The devs don't actually explain what is going on with the thing in the trailer. Now, obviously, that's going to be some kind of tonic, unless we're looking at dev hacks allowing them to run around the open world, but I'm pretty sure it'll be a tonic we can get. But the tonic represents what seems to be a super Choya, a super ninja Choya. He seems to be kind of ninja-y themed, similar to some of the stuff we've seen in World 2, right? But obviously, the Choya is a new entity. And yes, we might get it as a tonic, but where is it being represented in game? Is it a new boss that we'll get to fight? Have they just populated a random area with some Choya? Have they added a new section to one of these established zones that you find this guy in? As a Choya, surely that would mean we would have a desert-themed Super Adventure area, which of course there's no zone dedicated to right now, and that kind of hints at some big stuff. But since we're not available to go into the box just yet, we don't know where this guy is, and indeed the patch notes, as exhaustive as they are and we're about to get into, also don't really explain much about this dude. So yeah, you've got that. Also last week there was this blog post with an interesting initiative saying, welcome back to Guild Wars 2 Week 1. Now, I think this might have something to do with the layoffs, the refocus towards Guild Wars 2 for the devs, the acknowledgement that the game really is going to be sustaining them as their sole product for a very long time going forward, and they want to reinvigorate in some way. I'm not going to read out the whole post. You can feel free to check the link in the description or just pause the video here to read for yourself. Basically, they're just trying to show off the things that are happening in the game and offering episode 1 of this Living World season, Daybreak, for free. So they've actually offered a lot of free releases over the last while now, considering when the Beetle came out, we had a very long chunk of the Domain of Corner being free too. But so there you have it. That's some other little stuff going on at the same time. Let's get into the patch notes. And again, there's stuff for regular Tyria to do with gear and whatnot, but they do start with the Super Adventure Festival, so I may as well talk about that now. Moto's world-renowned Super Adventure Box returns again when the Super Adventure kicks off on March 28th. You can explore 2 worlds. They're very clear about this. There's not a whole new world here of excitement, and I mean, the whole thing's an April Fool's thing and a surprise, so I do expect them to one day double bluff us and the 3rd world will be there, but hey, I doubt it will be this year. Excitement, peril, and educational entertainment to earn holographic weapons and a variety of loot. Travelers can visit via the portals and so on. Now, they say when it starts, and here's the first big new thing. Ready? New adventures have been added to each zone. Look for adventure flags and their racing attendants to embark on a timed coin hunt. Right, so last year, you can check out my video for it if you'd like, they did add a race, which isn't necessarily the same as an adventure, though they act very similar, obviously. They added a race to the hub between players, so you'd have, 25 players all running in this race at once. It took you into that little cave. It was very fun. Again, you can check out my video for that. Now, though, they've added adventures that sound like races, so they're probably just going to be race format, in the zones themselves. So this means a couple of things. Number one, if there's an adventure in every single zone, we have 6 new adventures to look forward to. That's not bad. And honestly, if you look at last year, some of their festival updates, like adding the entirety of the Labyrinthine Cliffs back in, it kind of doesn't seem too crazy that the festival team can start adding bigger things like this, right? So you got 6 adventures, 6 races, 6 coin hunts, whatever they'll be called. The other distinguished thing about this is going to be that because they're in the zones themselves, there'll be 5-player max, so it's going to probably be racing against a clock rather than racing against other people. But yeah, they say look out for adventure flags. The next question to wonder about this as well, and we just don't know yet, is where are they being hosted? So one of the beautiful things about Super Adventure Box is you play through a normal mode and you think you know the maps. Then you go through on Tribulation mode and they can take the exact same geography and terrain and repurpose it to force you to go through totally different routes and use it in interesting ways. I wonder then whether these adventures will be give you a similar experience in that you'll be going through the regular areas of the map again, but with kind of a new lens over it. Maybe you're really rushing to jump across a selection of trees that you would normally completely ignore, but now you can't. But the thing is, I feel like most of us now know those maps really well, and I can't imagine where they would have put a really interesting race over the existing courses. I think it'd be really boring if these were just like, oh, speed run the level, do it as quickly as possible, because we kind of already have a ton of incentive to do that and play that. I think that'd be a bit lame. Maybe races that have you go in a reverse direction through some of the maps, but even then, we've had a lot of that experience hunting for baubles. I think the best thing that could happen from this would be that the new adventures are mini-zone extensions. Like, there are new places you can go to. Remember when they added the decoration shops for Guildhall decorations the first time in the furniture coins? They actually expanded the maps. They added secret new rooms and locations you could branch off from. Not very big ones, but they were there. I wonder if we get 6 new coined hunt races in totally newly added areas that are reasonably sized as well. And then, maybe if that is what they've done, one of them might be slightly Super Adventure deserty themed, and that's where we find the Choya. Maybe they're time trials against this Choya thing, and getting gold on all of them gives you the Choya. Remember that this is the same team, I think, that did the roller beetle races, and they had a very cool thing with the roller beetle races. That was once you did all of them, you got a special reward. I think it was the golden shiny scarf or whatever, right? If you got gold on everything. I think that the Choya tonic might come from that. I don't know. But you'll see, I could talk a lot about this one line. We just don't know right now. It takes a couple of days to get in there. There's all kinds of wonderful things they could have done with this, and it seems very fun. That's not all, though. Check it out here. 2 new achievements have been added to unlock new tool upgrades. So this is a mixed bag, and I'll explain that in a second. Let's see what the devs say. Seek out hidden treasures and trade items with the denizens of the Super Adventure Box to earn your way up to the powerful Mega Bomb and Stunning Boomerang. So, obviously we already have bombs, and placing them down to trigger them is not particularly worthwhile all of the time. You'd probably rather throw them. So maybe the Mega Bomb is kind of an upgrade that means the place down effect is much larger radius, and that's really fun. And the Stunning Boomerang sounds like it might be an upgrade of the Slingshot, maybe? Unless I'm forgetting something. And this would stun as it strikes, so you don't need the whip to stun people anymore. Maybe you can do it from range. They both sound very, very, very powerful. And I mean, some of you are going to be excited about that. Just the idea that extra tools are coming in for the first time ever since the Back to School update, right? We finally get to expand on this. It used to be that you'd only really get new tools from new shops in new zones and making progress. But since they stopped adding new zones and worlds, we've been kind of stuck in limbo where we are now. And that, you know, those two things would go hand in hand. So, yes, it's kind of exciting to finally get new tools. But here's the thing for me. This is a bit of a mixed bag because the idea that now they're adding the next tools, you know, because they will have always had ideas for these tools and always had concepts and principles they wanted to follow eventually with the addition of the new world. If they're now just adding them into the existing 2 worlds, isn't that kind of a suggestion that we really, 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 really never are going to get World 3 and World 4? Because these originally probably would have been World 3 and 4 upgrades, and now we're getting them in 1 and 2, and the whole, like, flow and idea of the Super Adventure Box as this, like, linear progression is just going out the window now, and they're just going to keep adding into the first 2 worlds. Do you get what I mean? That feels a bit of a shame to me. And the other side of this, of course, is what you want is to get a new tool because there are new challenges requiring that tool. And these new challenges, again, would have been seated within the upcoming zones. But that presumably doesn't happen here either. It's just kind of... these are extra things to use on the existing challenges and just kind of power creeps us a bit through the same maps. So yeah, it's a bit exciting, but at the same time, this kind of update worries me in a way because it's like another nail in the coffin, which I admit was pretty nailed tight shut a long time ago. You know, we're shoveling dirt onto it at this point, but this is another shovelful to me, and it feels kind of bad. Anyway, I'll see what you guys think on that one. A new vendor has also been added for the duration of the festival in Ratasum, trading a limited supply of valuable prizes each week. The inventory will be restocked when weekly rewards reset, so be sure to spend your bauble bubbles before. So, essentially, for as long as the festival's here, it's only going to reset a couple of times. I don't know whether this is a permanent vendor, is the idea. Otherwise, you only get a couple of resets. But this is like a long-term bauble bubble sync, right? The thing is, I did look in game already. You can wander around in Ratasum and see the closed off portal. I can't seem to see the new vendor. I don't think that they're unlocked just yet. So we don't know what kind of valuable prizes they're talking about. Might be something worth looking into. And then finally, as I will show you when this stuff is available, new Super Adventure Box themed guild decorations have been added. So we can rebuild our guild hall with the daunting cliff faces of Stormtop. The Super Adventure decorations are consistently among the best, I think. These might actually be available for purchase right now already if you already have some decoration coins left over from last year. I don't actually happen to have any of those, so I guess we'll see in a couple of days. But it's nice to see they're continuing to go with those. All right, so next we've got Moto's bug fix list. I like how it's Moto's bug fix. So I'll whiz through most of these, but particularly this one at the top I want to point out. To allow adventurers to earn the Crimson Assassin backpack cover faster, it's now just sold by the trader, the achievement that rewarded it. And if you guys remember, this achievement, it was a collection. It took ages, like years. That now instead just gives you an ascended quality version of the regular Super Assassin backpack. So the point here is you can now get the, what was this, the red backpack without having to wait ungodly amount of time grinding and doing those dailies every single day. You can now buy it a little bit quicker. They decided that was too long term, I suppose. Next, let's go through. So wind effects in one of the zones have been improved and now move the player at a steady rate rather than knocking you backward. This is in line with some of the other changes they made in other years. Fixed a bug that caused the Super Adventure Box reward vendors to sometimes swap. Updated. That's kind of a Guild Wars 1 thing. Very weird, actually. What they do with boss positions. Updated the descriptions when entering World 1 and 2 to state that adventurers are appropriate for 1 to 5 people. I mean, that's pretty boring. This one here, fixed areas where you could take damage from toxic water while being on safe terrain. That one I'm interested how frequently they've done it, because that was so frustrating if you had a bit of lag and maybe you were in Trib and you'd instantly die. And then, you know, this affects you as well at the same time. Fixed areas where players could stand in rapid water without being moved. Fixed a bug that could cause 2 copies of a cage boss to appear. This I used to get quite a lot, honestly. Fixed the number of pointing hands in some sections of infantile mode. So I guess it was too infantile. It was too obvious where to go. Actually, I guess if you reduce the number of hands, people are more likely to look at the hands that are still there. If you like oversaturate it, people might start ignoring them. That's probably something to do with that. Next, another infantile mode thing. Fixed a bug that could cause infantile mode achievements to stop progressing in rare cases. And finally, fixed a bug that prevented some text box from properly displaying. So there you have it. I mean, a pretty comfortable selection of bug fixes, and it's nice to see that they're still looking at that and trying to polish it up. Moving on from the Super Adventure Festival now, in a couple of days we'll see exactly what those adventures are like and how that works, so keep an eye out for the video on that. We move on to World Polish, and a big change to gear, to loot across the whole game, informed by Path of Fire and one of its systems. So this was actually revealed and talked a little bit about on the forums by the devs a couple of days ago, but I wanted to wait until this video to really dive into it, and we'll see how they express it in the patch notes. So you ready, guys? Here we go. Across Guild Wars 2, gear has been through countless changes and iterations. Generally, we've sought to improve the player experience and smoothness of bag management so that more active gameplay can take center stage. With the Path of Fire expansion, several rarities of unidentified gear were added to the game to replace the reward supply of uncommon, masterwork, and rare drops. Today's release rolls out the unidentified gear reward system to the rest of Tyria. So all over Tyria now, Core Tyria and Heart of Thorns now give you unidentified gear. And my thoughts largely on this will align with how they were at the start of Path of Fire for that expansion specifically, in that I like how this condenses the inventories down. I really do. I really don't like messing about in my inventory too much. The game was in a really shoddy place for a while. If they found that they liked the way that it worked in the end by Path of Fire, then it makes sense to me they'd roll it out everywhere else. In fact, I feel a bit stupid that they I hadn't thought that they might do this earlier. There are 3 major goals we hope to achieve with these changes. First, we want to separate regional drops more clearly, so that players get jungle loot in the jungle, desert loot in the desert, and so on. Secondly, we want to make unidentified gear worth equal value to all players, and not worth more to players with higher magic find potential. And last, but definitely not least, we hope to improve the play experience by reducing the number of times players need to stop and deal with full bags. Yeah, certainly not least here. So, yeah, this first point you might be scratching your head wondering what they're talking about. Remember, unidentified gear as it currently stands, if you look at like rare unidentified gear, when you open it, you get a good chance of getting Sun Spear weapons and Mordant Crescent stuff and specific exotics for the Path of Fire Elite Specialization collections. Well, that's going to be really weird and out of place if you're getting that in Kessex Hills. And here's how they've worked on all of this. First of all, updated the level 80 rewards in most areas of the game to drop unidentified gear instead of common, masterwork, or rare items. Some items that are only available in certain areas or tied to specific content will still drop directly. Now, they're very vague about that, and I have a serious feeling something will have fallen through the cracks one way or the other here, but I don't know for sure just yet. And you'll notice here as well, they say level 80 rewards. So I haven't actually tested this. Maybe you guys can say in the comments, does this mean that we still don't get unidentified stuff even when we are below level 80 in those other places? It's only something that kicks in once you hit level cap. Remove the chance to acquire Eyes of Cormyr, Congealed Putrescences, and Pulsing Brandstarks when salvaging unidentified gear. These will now drop occasionally as loot from creatures in the Crystal Desert instead. So this is exactly what I was talking about. They've sort of separated that away. Next, they say Magic Find no longer affects the identification of unidentified gear. This does still affect it as it drops, I believe, but it just doesn't double affect it now, once on drop and once on open. They say that they've significantly reduced the chances of acquiring rare Sun Spear weapons from pieces of rare unidentified gear. Though I guess this means if you get rare unidentified gear in Tangled Depths, you could still get a Sun Spear weapon from it. That's a kind of a fun idea with the world building, thinking of some Sun Spear that went off on an adventure in the jungle, and now you've got his thing in a very rare circumstance. They added Fine and Masterwork reclaimed weapons to the pool of items available from the Fine and Masterwork unidentified stuff. So this is Heart of Thorn stuff now getting rolled into the system. And they fixed a bug that caused several crafting materials to appear as though they had discoverable recipes remaining when they did not. Right, okay, cool. So yeah, a lot of you guys have asked for my opinion on this. I'm not sure whether I'm missing some minutiae or really important sticking point with this. I think this is good, right? It's less inventory management. I was in favor of the unidentified gear. I thought it worked well throughout Path of Fire up until that point. I know that some people think it's a little bit of extra clicking if they're very specific in the way that they do things in the game. But I like it so far as it seems on paper. Weird things slipping through the cracks, obviously, notwithstanding. General, they say this one's kind of nice. The right-click menu for legendary equipment now includes select stats option while it's equipped. So what this means is, in the past, if you had a legendary weapon that you had on Berserker and now you want it on Viper, you'd have to unequip it, then select stat, then find the right stat, then confirm it, then re-equip it, and then your stats swapped. And, you know, that's a lot nicer than having to make an entirely new weapon, don't get me wrong, and it's a lot nicer than having to re-roll it in the Mystic Forge, don't get me wrong, but it was still a little bit fiddly. However, nowadays, legendaries are like kind of a big thing with the game. Lots of people have them. Legendary armor is rune swappable and stat swappable. Weapons are sigil swappable at the same time. So now being able to do this to your entire gear set is really nice. For me, this is more about legendary armor than it is about weapons. Just that I can very quickly rotate through all 6 slots and be done with it. That's cool, definitely. Fractals, Birds, and Slippery Slope have been removed. So people didn't basically like these much. I thought they were the most creative and interesting, but they were also very frustrating. And some of the combos, specifically Slippery Slope, if it wasn't a particularly jumping puzzly kind of fractal like Cliffside, was a nightmare. So they've removed them. It's a shame because I would have really liked to have... I don't know, some scaled back version of them maybe? I don't know. Anyway, Slippery Slope is still available in the Fractal Console Guild decoration. We Bleed Fire will now damage enemies when reflected, and it can now hit player minions. The duration of applied burning has been reduced from 10 to just 3. So there you have it. That's a lot of the general changes, World Polish. They do then have some profession balance, and it's not all just tooltips. First of all, tooltip for Elementus Healing Rain, so that you can actually see it's like 480 instead of 450. Engineer, gyros. Now, gyros, if you follow my second channel, you see I did a whole video about Scrapper and the gyro buff and how strong Scrapper became out of it. It's funny because they were really flavor of the month very, very briefly. And now there's a lot more Scrappers around than there used to be, but it has scaled back a bit on its own without the devs' intervention, which is nice, but they did do some changes. So first of all, some tooltip display issues. Blast Gyro fixed a bug that prevented shocking speed from granting super speed on the final tick of this. I didn't even notice that was a broken interaction, but there you go. Bulwark, they fixed the bug that allowed this skill to redirect at damage from inanimate objects. Now what this is to do with World versus World. If you Bulwark gyroed next to a gate, and then someone, you know, sieged it, the siege would do epic damage to the gate, redirected to you, and blow you up, okay? So, yes, they have fixed this. It doesn't really affect any of the PvP stuff, not unless people were trying to save the gates on Legacy somehow, I don't know. Then they also say that they reduced the barrier granted by the skill by 33% in PvP, which is an important change. That's one of the things I would have wanted to do, reduce the barrier, because it was just so much crazy barrier. Only in PvP though, not World versus World. And I think that's fair, because in World versus World, you're kind of in these high-scale Zergy scenarios where that barrier will melt through anyway. And then the other really important one for the gyros, Sneak Gyro. This is one of the most broken feeling things I think I've ever played with when I was playing Scrapper very, very quickly post-patch. They've reduced the stealth from 3 seconds a pulse to just 1.5. So they've halved the stealth in PvP and World vs. World. This is still really strong, but you can't do these supremely trolly moves where you, like, push far, get plus, and just sneak gyro. And there's 2 players that just stand around for ages, or one of them has to leave just in case you've already escaped to another node. I mean, you could just do so much crazy stuff. By halving the stealth duration, that's still very much there, but less so, obviously. For Mesmer, the Phantasmal Warden, they've realized it had vulnerability and put it on this tooltip. Necromancer obviously had Harbinger Shroud get added, we did some talk about. Herald of Sorrow fixed a bug that caused boons to be corrupted in conditions when using the Manifest Sandshade skill when this trait was equipped. So that's the old functionality of this trait, which I guess they forgot to remove. I didn't even realize this, but Scourge was getting Harbinger Shroud and the old trait benefit at once. This might explain why I saw some people still running this, even in situations where it didn't seem that good. And then finally, they removed on the Shroud itself the unnecessary skill fact for pulses, and they made it appropriately corrupt boons upon detonation. I don't know how it was inappropriately doing that. I thought it was doing it correctly, but they have it. Rangers, spirit skills, they fixed a bug in which the active spirit skills reverted to their original skills if the spirit were kept alive long enough. I mean, I didn't know about that. That's bizarre. Soul Beast fixed a bug that allowed the ranger to merge with their pet and use a different pet simultaneously. What is this bug? Somebody explain to me. How is this? So hold on, you could be a merged Soul Beast with your pet out? What? That sounds epic. I wish I knew about that and how you could trigger that. For Rev, Renegade specifically, they fixed a bug that could cause group prioritization issues in Soul Cleaver Summit. I'm guessing Raiders are more interested in that than I am. Thief, for Deadeye, you've got Silent Scope, fixed an issue that caused this trait to display the incorrect stealth duration values, but it was actually doing the newly updated ones. And Warrior, I'm guessing people were doing this in World vs. World. Winds of Disenchantment, remember, is now a channeled skill as of the last patch. Well, it now actually strikes enemies around and reveals you. So you can't be stealthed in the middle of it, which is, I guess, a really cool idea in World vs. World. Stealthing your Spellbreakers so that they would winds and create these invisible bubbles that people can't see. That sounds super fun to me, but probably OP. It would have been nice, again, to find a middle ground where you could still do that cross-profession coordination combo to get the stealth winds up, but it wouldn't be so bad. But I don't know. I mean, mass invis and stuff and sneak gyros, it's probably too easy to make them stealth anyway these days. Right, so there you go. Moving over to SPVP. A bug I'm really happy with. Fixed a bug in which the spectator announcer for Jin's Dominion was being incorrectly used for all maps. Many of you guys might not have hit this bug or know what it's even talking about. This was a spectating thing. Whenever I would spectate automated tourneys or 1v1s and things, it would always be the Jin's Dominion Jin announcer, even though I was on, like, Legacy or Forest or something. It was really weird. I thought that the devs just really liked their new voice acting and had slipped that in. It was a weird change, but whatever, I thought. Well, they've reverted that now. When you were actually playing the maps, that bug didn't manifest, but when you were spectating, it did all the time. And Disenchantment Field, this is the special action you get from the new map. It says this skill now only hits enemies. Apparently, it could hit allies. I know that the telegraphing seems a bit weird for this. It looks like an enemy field, even when it's an allied one. Moving over to World vs. World, of course, you do have the Warclaw, and there are some undocumented changes Wiki will look at with this. First of all, Superior Battle Maul. This skill now prioritizes finishing downed enemies before inflicting enemy damage on just regular people. Bit of quality of life there. Battle Maul and Superior Battle Maul also no longer add bleeding to affected enemies. Players no longer jump when dismounting the Warclaw. Players must now unlock the Warclaw Companion achievement to unlock the reward track. Reduce the collision of the Warclaw slightly to ensure it can go through certain doorways. I'm not sure what maps that's on, but yeah, that's pretty lame if you're running around in World vs. World going through a normal, correct thoroughfare and you're not actually allowed to walk into it. Why do I suspect that's Desert Borderlands? Maybe that's wrong with me. Updated the tooltips on the Warclaw skills Battle Maul and Superior Battle Maul to reflect the proper targets and damage, and players can now mount up in the rooms containing boxes required for the perfect fit achievement. This is the achievement where you get on it, it's a giant cat, right, and you're meant to go into these little boxes. So yeah, just a bit of convenience there. Moving on to the last of ArenaNet's notes before we get to Wiki, and a cool hint from that shaman I'll touch on right at the end of the video. So Black Lion, you remember they did Define Glass Black Lion weapons? Well, now there's an outfit for you and a backpack if you want to buy those. The Sacred Dye Kit with 6 new colors. They're doing March Madness with all their sales and stuff. And then this last line here is what I really want to look at. To welcome returning players back to Tyria, the Tradesman's Package, a quantity of 1, and the first episode of Daybreak are available for free on all accounts, but only for a week. And that is related to what I think I mentioned earlier in the video, this Welcome to Guild Wars 2 Week 1 thing. Next, there's bug fixes on the gem store. The luxurious pile of gold novelty share can be used in the Armistice Bastion. Why it couldn't before, I have no idea. Fixed a bug that caused combat music to play unexpectedly in the Bastion. The Warclaw Tender is now available in the Bastion. 4 additional transformations when entering the Forge are in the Armistice Bastion. And the Laurel Merchant in the Bastion now offers the same wares as the other ones in the other World vs. World maps. I hadn't noticed that these vendors were different. Was it like antiquated and old stuff? I don't know. The Guild Wars 2 wiki notes that Warclaws are now immune to stealth. So, I talked about this with Boots, actually, and how easy it would be just to sneak gyro, get on a Warclaw, and your gyro, you know, stealths your Warclaw and everyone around you. I mean, crazy, let alone any other methods of stealth. But now you cannot be stealthed on them. Mounting the Warclaw while being stealth removes it, and trying to stealth while being mounted now displays immune instead. I think that doesn't mean you actually get the reveal buff, by the way. Or debuff it, whatever you consider it as. But yeah, the removal of the jump from the Warclaw dismount also affected PvE. The tooltips for unidentified gear have not been updated to reflect the removal of magic find affecting them. And lastly, a very strange change here. The repeatable version of the Not on the Guest List achievement has been renamed to Officially Uninvited. Is this because they want to differentiate the repeatable one from the non-repeatable one? I don't really know. So anyway, there you go, guys. That's the Tuesday patch, the precursor patch for Super Adventure Box, which will go live in just a couple of days, and we can look at some of the more nitty-gritties there. I want to end on one thing that shaman noted. With this patch 2 came another undocumented sneaky change to the world map. So check out the Imgur album that he's posted here. If you look, this is the old domain of Vabi, and we're looking at the northern areas of the Mirror of Lys, where, yes, the hidden city of Ardashim's entrance was in Guild Wars 1. This is what it looked like pre-patch, and post-patch, it's looking a little bit different. Now, that's kind of strange. In Shaman's own words, he says they added more detail to the northern border and added a road to it. Now, why might they have done that? Here, you can see this is the road here, you can see on the left. Well, I think that's a pretty good sign that just maybe the finale or some kind of episode soon will take us to one of the big locations from the Nightfall campaign 10 years ago, and we still haven't been to in Path of Fire. That's the hidden city of the Jinn, filled with riches and gold, a great hiding place for the Princes of Vabi, and also, over the past 250 years, the hiding place of another dragon, the spawn of one of the spawn, Assault Spray, a potential spawn of Kunavang, and some links to Cantha. So that would be a really exciting place to end with Living Worlds. and a sneaky update from the devs there. So we'll see how this stuff goes. I'll keep you guys in the loop as the month continues. Thanks very much for watching. Feel free to check out my Super Adventure Box playthrough as well, which will probably be updated with an extra episode showing off a lot of this new content as well by the end, which is currently going on live. Thanks, guys. I hope you enjoy. I'll see you tomorrow.